We could probably just have generative AI create the script for the show and it would be better.
I don't buy that. You're the guy who talks to me about having to write our emails and all that kind of stuff.
Well, it would probably get to the fact that I'm a best-selling author quickly.
I don't know. So when I get into generative AI and writing emails and all that kind of stuff, I mean, we're both in leadership roles.
Yeah.
I really believe you get better leadership when people see who you are, where you're coming from, and I don't want to delegate that off to a technology.
Once he gets to know me, I mean, anyone that's followed our show for a while, you know, they know that I'm the nice one, and you're Greg Lotko.
All right, you might have just convinced me. I think what you were trying to say is generative AI would make you a better Dan Newman, and after that last comment, I'm willing to give it a shot.
Well, the question really becomes, does it make us more human, or does it make us better human?
I don't know, but I think we have a guest that can talk to us about that.
All right, so let's get after it.
Joining us today is Reg Harbeck. He's the CEO and Chief Strategist at Mainframe Analytics. Has a degree in computer science, but kind of like we were talking, you wanted to bring humanity into into your world and your view, your perspective. So we went back to school. You got a master's in interdisciplinary humanities, right?
Yes, sir.
So what do you think?
Well, first of all, what is that? You know, just
sure.
What is that?
It's a degree that they offer at a local university where I live about English and history and philosophy. And you know, as I looked at moving forward, having spent 35 years as a mainframe nerd, and seeing how to sort of weave the humanity back into that, it looked like an excellent opportunity to really bring that part out and discover the humanity of computing and especially of the mainframe. And so it was a really neat journey to have that question present in every course that I took, because I learned about the history of philosophy. I learned about all these other things. Studied the history of science fiction, studied poetry about technology, all these things, trying to see how it all fit with computing, and especially the origins of computing and the computer that really so implicitly helps all of humanity by running the world economy.
And when we talk about this, think about this, because he got right there when he was describing it. You didn't start by talking about the mainframe. You talked about being a mainframer.
Yes.
Right? So he brought it right to the human part of that whole ecosystem.
Well, you heard he said English, verbs, nouns, adjectives. He's doing that thing. And he actually did a pronoun, mainframer, right? Capital M or lowercase?
Well, lowercase actually, and that's interesting. It's not quite like using a lowercase I to refer to yourself, but yeah, that it's just another reference, just like anybody else, I guess.
Yeah, well, it is really interesting that you heard how we started the show, and we're talking a little bit about, and there's so many different factors. There's generations. He's a couple generations older than me. There's the particulars of our job, of our roles, styles of communication. You're a very soft-spoken, very personable leader. But in serious, because we both lead teams, and the way we lead teams, how could things like AI actually fit into the way we can be more communicative, but at the same time do it at a greater scale, but not lose kind of that persona and personality that inspires people.
Yes.
And so I have to imagine, I'd just love to get your broader take, with generative AI and AI in general, generative AI and AI in general, this has to be like one of the biggest inflections in history where humanity and technology are just about to collide in a way that's going to change the way we exist.
Well, and certainly, I mean, futurists like Ray Kurzweil, want us to think that transhumanism means that our technology is literally going to supersede us. And that's where I take issue with what he's concluding about this. I think all of human history has been a journey of creating technology that helped us be more human, and that's going to be the differentiator between those technologies that last and those that we try them out and they just don't work out for us. And so for me, the essential impact, in the short term at least, of AI is something that's already been happening using auto-reply and other things, and I call it prosthetic consciousness. And what it is we're recognizing that our consciousness is one of the essential parts of us as humans, but it's something we've always extended with tools. And so that those tools, including AI, that allow us to extend but not displace our consciousness, so that we are able to be more effective, but more importantly, more human. Those are the things that are really going to last in the long term as we continue this very, very long journey of not merely discovering, but defining what it means to be truly human.
So I want to pick on one word in there because I did also study technical communications in addition to computer science, and you said it twice in there. You said technology is going to help us be more human.
Yes.
More human or
Yes.
better humans?
Okay, that's a good point. And I think that I'm using the term more human in a sense to imply better humans. But even that,
So
there's no standard.
one I can embrace, the other, I have a knee-jerk reaction. I
Sure.
want to scoff at it. I want to. How does something artificial make us more of something what we already are? Now, I would challenge that.
Yes.
But when I hear the better part, and I think about, all inventions and industrial revolution and mechanizing things and all this, it was to make us better at doing something, and it maybe made us more effective. But making us more human with artificial.
Yes. Oh, and so I'll stand by that. And one of the reasons is because the whole journey of humanity in so many ways is discovering and defining and refining and building what it means to be truly human. That if you take a look at all these ways that we have risen above our context and distinguished ourselves, it's by taking that journey. And so every technology we've ever invented, going all the way back, has not been to displace people, but throughout history we've had Luddites who thought this technology is going to displace people. You look at the whole Industrial Revolution, and certainly a lot of people at the lower social rungs got treated in a very poor manner as part of that. And yet, through the big picture of it all, we found ways to be more and more human, and we have not ceased to be human just because there are any number of automations that do things
So what
for
you're
us.
saying is, we had a plane of existence, a state of being. We were what we were, but we hadn't realized everything we could become and
we never will.
evolve to.
Yeah.
And therefore, because we weren't at the essence of our state, the technologies continue to elevate us towards a truer ultimate state that, I really do like this part of the theory and the discussion, the idea that evolution will always continue. There will always be a next technology. There will always be another extension or form of assistance that we may not have an awareness of today. I mean, we could go back to the 60s and watch Star Trek, and many of the things that were on there that were fantasy or science fiction have become reality. So what you're saying is there's always going to be that next thing that we haven't even imagined yet,
Yes.
and that will make us more human.
Yeah, well, and it won't always make us more human. I mean, there's no question that some of the technologies that have been used over the last 2 centuries especially have been horrifically inhumane. And yet we've learned from those. We recognized that those did not meet the standard. Even though it's a standard that was not clearly spelled out, we recognized that this was inhumane the way it was used, and we've moved beyond it. Whereas some technologies have helped us become more human, and we've built on those.
It's interesting. I don't know. I just looked out the window and I was thinking to myself about why we don't have flying cars yet. Solving the geospatial and sort of traffic problems with 2D seems pretty inefficient. But we're still there, but we're just putting 800-pound batteries in things now, calling that the solution to everything. I don't know. So what do you think, though? I mean,
Well, true. I think that's one of the big challenges in our history is that we have a sense of where we want to go. We don't know how to get there, but just the vision. And sometimes things like Star Trek, sliding doors. Star Trek invented those automatically sliding doors, and then we figured out how to do it.
Yeah.
And where there's a will, there's a way. And so that's a really big part is when you have the science fiction writers, when you have the idea people who don't know how to get there, they give us the idea that then we say, is this a way to become more human? And we don't phrase it that way, but we recognize it that way, so we don't always know when it actually happens, whether it is, but if it isn't, we keep moving till it is human.
then are we hitting the mark with all this technology? Are we able to deliver the value to society and to business?
I think it's far more interesting when we miss the mark. My brother used to wear a button that he said the difference between genius and stupidity is that genius has its limits. But my attitude is that, in fact, it's our stupidity that's our greatest strength. We forget that. When an animal makes a mistake, it's not being stupid. It's just being.
And we
functional in
learn
its
the
environment.
most from our mistakes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. As long as it doesn't kill us.
True.
That's why they came up with the phrase, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Because the ones that died couldn't talk about it.
But everybody else learns from their example. Maybe your purpose
Absolutely.
in life is to be an example. But Isaac Asimov said, most great scientific discoveries are not heralded with eureka, but with, that's funny. And it's those mistakes that often lead, think of Post-its and other inventions like that were intended one way.
Lots of drugs were discovered by accident.
Absolutely. Penicillin. So on the one hand, I think careful, scrupulous planning and design is always going to be a part of great inventions. You think about Dr. Fred Brooks and the System 360, and he wrote, first of all, the Mythical Man Month, and then decades later, the Design of Design, about how important design is to do something well. But on the other hand, even to get to the idea of something being possible often requires a lot of mistakes. And so I think the moment we try to put a bar, we must meet this level to have achieved something, that itself in some ways is a mistake.
So what's our gut check? What's our gut check of when technology, a new technology comes around, how do we think, is this going to make us more human, or are we in the mistake part and we have to get to the next step? How do you identify that?
My 3 principles have always been beauty, truth, and love. That these are the essential things as human beings that we use as our essential measure for whether something really has a long-term value to us as humans. These are the essential measuring rods, if you will, for whether we recognize something as genuinely part of what we're doing. And so when we refer to something as being artificial, part of what we're doing is differentiating it from something that's real, that meets those standards. There's something about it that isn't quite good enough, and so we have to keep moving forward.
Huh. Yeah, it's interesting. So, let's tie this back to the main part of the main scoop, right? The mainframe. It's a product that, oftentimes, and I'm the voice of reason here, that has to deal with being the kind of the butt of the mainframe. Isn't that dead, old? And obviously, no, it's not. And but my point is so there's an enduring value to technological innovations that actually hold the test of time. You like to talk about the next thing being the panacea. That's kind of one of the things. And by the way, what's old is new is a common thing, because I joke about generative AI. I say, Cliff Notes. Anybody else use Cliff Notes to pass tests in high school about books they read? Well, but the point is kind of what's old is new again. What's old and trusted is, resilient. Planes fly for 30 or 40 years. And by the way, they haven't changed at all. If you look at the actual look of an airplane, over the last 30 or 40 years, they barely look different. But the mainframe has been a staple.
The enduring concepts, the enduring technologies or qualities are the things that last, right? So, if you think about virtualization, if you think about zero trust as an approach to security, they're concepts that were in the mainframe very early on. Other technologies came along that solved other problems really well, but they did then realize they needed some of these other capabilities, whether it be virtualization or the security or stuff like that. So there is the thread that the things that really do drive improvement of humanity or improvement of an experience, those core qualities and capabilities survive. Some other technologies may become additive or morph around it, but you pull all those things together, and yeah, then that's how we end up always talking about mainframe, that it's a component of IT. It's got some core strengths, but it really is about
the irony of the whole thing. And if you give me 5 more minutes, I swear I was going to get to a question. But the irony of the whole thing is that, here we are talking about kind of future state. We're talking about this disruptive types of technology. And mainframe, probably disruptive isn't the word anybody would use right now, but it's been very stable and core to all the disruptive capabilities in the market that we need. The industries in fintech and healthcare, these industries still are entirely dependent on a mainframe to do a lot of its core transacting securely, privately, that people are dependent on. So where's the humanity in not evolving? Where's the humanity in staying with what works and not disrupting?
You're implying that mainframe hasn't evolved.
Well, hold on. I wasn't saying that.
No, but you talk about not moving.
Iterative versus innovative?
I would agree, evolutionary versus revolutionary in general, right? But if you look at the speeds and speeds, the transactional throughput, the stability, the measures and strides that mainframe has, how it has evolved, there's a reason it's around, because it has continued to advance at a staggering rate. Now, the other reason it's still around is because of opening up that platform and the recognition that it should be tying into other engines. Technologies.
There's still combustion engines. They still function much the same, but the the amount of efficiency you get out of one has changed greatly, and so aerodynamic, things like that. I get the point. Where I was really trying to get on this humanities side of things is, that staying with what works. Mm-hmm. There's got to be some fairly strong foundations in the fact that, people struggle with change and people want stability. Mm-hmm. And I mean, where does that fit into all this when we're constantly disrupting ourselves to the point where how does that help society to provide some stability?
Well, and I think the term "it works" is such a core term for our understanding of what works. And one of the beauties of the mainframe is it manifests the real meaning of the word legacy as compared to the way it's being misused by people who are trying to sell something else, is that it's established itself, it's become a legacy of something of value that works. And so as it continues to grow and develop and advance in so many ways, it's founded on some basic solid principles. And it's sort of funny that it's called 360 because in so many ways, just like the wheel is 360 degrees, and they invented the wheel when they invented the mainframe. And so you've got all that solid functionality. And let's look at society and say, how many things around here do we rely on and don't even notice we take for granted? Most laws, the way traffic works, and there's over and over again all these different things that have just been baked into how we do life so that we have the ability to move forward in other ways. And so the mainframe increasingly is baked into that information technology that works so we can take for granted, so we can continue to explore and grow in all kinds of ways, including on the mainframe, because we've got something that's foundational, that's an excellent legacy, that works and that we can build on.
And again, I like words, right? So you think about the word legacy. I think in today's day and age, people will hear that word and some of them think about, the silver spoon, the entitlement, getting something handed to them.
Michael Jordan.
But we'll get back there. But what legacy is supposed to imply and what you're supposed to get from it is that it's built on the foundation of the past, that it brings those qualities forward and it continues to evolve and be additive relative to the human condition.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's what, when we refer to somebody as a legacy, we're assuming they've gotten all the great family values from there. And where are we going with Jordan?
I was just saying that legacy can be perceived as a negative or a positive. Legacy of something can mean it's the best. It is trusted. It works. It was the person you wanted to take the last shot, or the technology that you depend upon to connect the world and to make sure that our systems are up and running and that traffic system works. This stuff matters.
It does.
It does. So other than the fact that he said something about the wheel and the mainframe being invented at the same time, I think he was saying it in jest.
He talked about 360, full scope.
But he put it in a sentence where he said the mainframe and the wheel, and I just think we should cut that out as a clip because it was so fun that you and I could use this. The wheel thing?
Yeah.
Did you say that?
360 degrees.
That was a dad joke.
Yep, I do those.
I love it. So hey, I want to thank you so much, Reg, for joining us here today. This was a lot of fun. It's always really interesting to go down a little bit of a path that's not hard tech, but that actually everything and all roads lead back to tech. And Greg, we don't have to agree on everything.
It's that generational divide, huh?
But I'm usually right. I heard something about explaining things and being right in the same sentence, and I'm usually right, but every once in a while I'll give you one.
And even a broken clock is right twice a day. So I'll give you that, Dan.
And there we have it. So thank you so much.
Join us for the next Main Scoop.
Thank you everybody for tuning in to this episode of The Main Scoop. We appreciate you joining us. Hit subscribe, join us for all of our episodes. We'll see y'all really soon.
He's Daniel Newman. I'm Greg Lotko. I got the last word.
Always does.